Broadway, listen to the Broadway beat. Broadway makes you want to move your feet. Everybody's tapping into everything that's happening on Broadway beats. Broadway beats. Broadway beats. Broadway beat.
Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for Broadway Beat. The Stage Directors and Choreographers Foundation gave their 2011 Mr. Abbott Award to Tony Award-winning director George C. Wolfe, and we were here for the gala celebration.
And so the second time I auditioned for George was for Angels in America. And he said to me, I saw 800 Negroes. I chose you. And we started rehearsals, and I struggled a bit early on to find my way. And George took me aside one day and offered me a series of directions. Then he walked away, he stopped and returned, saying, and one more thing, Jeffrey, drag queens don't drag their feet. And all of a sudden I knew what was required.
It was really a realization of how much George has given me, really. As I walked around the room and I looked on stage and I looked at the video, I had this connection to practically everyone and everything that I saw, and I realized that, you know, I'm not really here without George. And he's an incredibly, and many people in the room felt that, it wasn't just me. He's an incredibly expansive, inclusive, sharing guy, and he creates a landscape that allows all of us to live and breathe. There was a guy on stage tonight when they did the opening piece from Bringin' Noise, Bringin' Funk, the slave ship piece, when Bakari was dancing and Ann was singing, and the guy playing djembe, West African drum, was a white dude with a red mohawk, right? That's America. But that America doesn't get an opportunity to breathe as much as it needs to. But George creates the environment in which that can happen. You know, that's, he's the best.
Oh, there's really there's nobody better to celebrate than George. He's through and through an artist and a champion of humanity and a good friend and somebody that understands understands what it's like to be the underdog, you know. And when I was coming up and struggling, George was there for me, and he's a very generous person, and there's nobody like him in the theater. I really do think that when you see a show directed by George, it's definitive. You know it's his, and it's an experience that involves your soul. It goes deep, you know. It's not just a fun night at the theater. It's something that, you know, can rock your world. And George as a friend is like that too. And so I was really, really proud and honored to be here for him.
What was the first show you saw of his? Was it Jelly's Last Jam?
Yeah, it was Jelly's Last Jam. And you know, I was young. I was like 21 years old, and I was really good at hustling, you know. So I snuck in. I didn't know about second acting in those years. So I just snuck in and would move every time I saw an usher come by, and I literally did it 5 times, never got caught. And then you know, George had an incredible run then. So for a young actor like me at that time, it was it was just kismet that George happened to be directing these incredible shows. I mean, Angels in America Part 1 and 2, it's that's the play of my generation. It's the greatest play, I think, of my generation, and I got to see it so many. I actually second acted that one, and I had a friend who was a cover, so he would sneak me in. And then Twilight, and then Noise Funk. It was like bananas, and so I just knew I wanted to hang around the public and get to know George, and I did, you know, and I would be there all the time just to be around that energy, and now here it is, 15, 20 years later, and you know, you couldn't ask for a better friend. She's truly is true to the core.
I was talking to George one night, and he said, well, you know, Elaine Stritch just called me and said that she watched your show. And I said, well, what did she say? And he said, and this is maybe my favorite thing ever said about me or Angels. George said, well, she said, Jesus Christ, that guy has opinions about everything.
I never thought I could have this much happiness, this much good stuff happened to me. But who could foresee? You are the goddamnedest thing that has happened to me. Ever. When could I have this much happiness happen to me? Never. Help me, Rob.
I can't believe my luck.
I can't believe my luck. So all I can do is be. This much happiness happen, well, tonight anyway. To you.
What was it like for you working with George and working on The Normal Heart?
Well, it was the most magical experiences I've ever had as an actor, and George made it that way, and that's the beginning and end of the story. He started and built it and finished it, and it wouldn't have been anything without him. And I owe him not just the what that specific experience brought me, but I owe him an enormous debt for a complete rejuvenation of who I am and the respect I have for what I do and everything else that everybody else does in the theater. And it really was a game changer for me.
Well, I would have loved to have gotten to speak because I owe my entire career to George C. Wolfe. Jelly's Last Jam, which was my first Tony Award, Caroline or Change, which was another Tony nomination. He could have given those roles to anyone, and he gave them to me, and he's such a dear friend, and we have such a history together. He's just been a friend and a supporter, and Old Home Week, seeing all of these people from 30 years in the theater. I'm not that old. But more than anyone in the whole world, I love George C. Wolfe, and I respect his artistry as a writer and as a director, and he's why I'm here doing what I do.
Because he's more than a director. He was like a father figure, a brother, everything to you, isn't he?
You know what, he's kind of like a savant, and sometimes he'll just go through this thing and it's like he can read you and read your life, and he'll just start telling you about yourself. And he's this deeply spiritual man. I remember when I did Jelly's Last Jam, it was the first big role of my career, and I was terrified. And I was in this production where the girl who had played the role had been moved to the chorus. So I walked into a room full of people who were kind of hostile. And I was so afraid I wouldn't do anything. So for the first 2 weeks of rehearsal, I did nothing. And the night before the final run, the first run through, I think it was Keith David was doing a cabaret in Los Angeles, and George said he had decided to fire me the next day. But our two cars arrived in the parking lot at the same time, and so he felt it was a sign that he should give me another chance. And the next day we did the run through, and I did what I'd been holding on to for 2 weeks because I was too afraid that if I showed it and someone said no, I wouldn't be able to get this courage back up again. And that's just George, you know, he had a feeling and he said, I'm gonna give her a chance. And he didn't even tell me that till maybe 5 years ago.
You're talking the music, and when you are
the line of men and women who have received this award is astonishing, so I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I love the theater, I love plays, I love musicals, I love working on Broadway, I love off-Broadway, I love New York City, so it feels like it's encapsulating all of that because of who he was. He was New York, he was Broadway, he was this visionary. So the fact that I'm getting an award that's named after him is just, I feel like I'm part of some continuum, and I'm even happier to think that there's a continuum that will follow after me, and that's thrilling.
And seeing your whole life pass in front of you tonight.
Oh my God, those baby pictures, oh my God. And the hair, that's the main thing I was going, can I get back some of that hair? I would just like a little bit of that hair. It was thrilling. It was, I had old friends here and new friends and friends from old shows, and it was a wonderful, magical night.
I am thrilled and honored to call myself a working artist in New York City. It is a incredible thing. I dreamed of it when I was a little boy. My very first memory was sitting on this little yellow rug. I couldn't walk, but I could sit up. And my grandfather would build up these blocks, and I'd knock them down, and he would applaud. And that was the defining moment of my aesthetic. So, in my ramblings, thank you for this Mr. Abbott Award. I lost it a few times because I was just overwhelmed. Oh, that's my phone. I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed by the love that I felt tonight. And I was going to stand up here and say, I am Mrs. Norman Maine, and then walk off, but I decided that wouldn't be quite right. Instead, I gave a rambling speech, but at the base of my rambling speech is thank you so much, everybody, and I'm humbled. Thank you.